Welcome, everyone, and especially visitors, to this online gathering with the Unitarian Universalist Church of Bowling Green, especially on this very first Sunday in fall, a wonderful day. We are a welcoming congregation. Whoever you are, however you identify, wherever you come from, and whoever you love, please know that you are welcome here. Our Sunday services are different each week so that we can honor and learn from our wide array of traditions and beliefs. Today, our speaker is the Reverend Peter Connolly. Reverend Connolly was the first settled minister here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Bowling Green, serving from 2009 to 2017. He is currently an affiliate minister with this church and also a minister emeritus. He has been in charge of our church's jail ministry for the last 3 years, and we're delighted to welcome him back to the pulpit. Though we each walk our own path, here in this place and now at this time, we journey together as one community. For the worldwide community of Unitarian Universalists, the Flaming Chalice is a symbol of the light of learning, fire of our commitment, and the love of our community. This morning, I will be lighting our chalice, and we will be hearing music by Forrest Halford, Rise Up, O Flame. If you have a chalice at home, you can light it now, and feel free to sing along. And take a probably break here, and then I'm going to come around. This morning, the Reverend Peter Connolly will be giving our opening reading, Harbingers of Frost, by Robert T. Weston.
Autumn, we know, is life en route to death. The asters are but harbingers of frost, the trees flaunting their colors at the sky. In other times, will follow where the leaves have fallen, and so shall we. Yet other lives will come, so may we know, accept, embrace the mystery of life we hold a while. Not mourn that it outgrows each separate self, but still rejoice that we may have our day. Lift high our colors to the sky, and give, in our time, fresh glory to the earth.
We will now sing, Nay, Do Not Grieve, hymn number 192 in the hymnal Singing the Living Tradition.
Today that seems so long, so strange.
will now have a few moments for meditation, reflection, and prayer. The singing bowl will lead us into silence. After the silence, we will sing Spirit of Life, which is hymn number 123 in Singing the Living Tradition hymnal. You're welcome to sing along.
Earth, teach me stillness, as the grasses are stilled with light.
Earth, teach me suffering, as old stones suffer with memory.
Earth, teach me caring, as parents who secure their young.
Earth, teach me courage, as the tree which stands all alone.
Earth, teach me limitation, as the ant which crawls on the ground.
Earth, teach me freedom, as the eagle which soars in the sky.
Earth, teach me resignation, as the leaves which die in the fall.
Earth, teach me regeneration, as the seed which rises in the spring.
Earth, teach me to forget myself, as melted snow forgets its life.
Earth, teach me to remember kindness, as dry fields weep with rain. As mentioned earlier, Unitarian Universalists have a wide array of beliefs, and the speakers at our Sunday services come from many traditions. Here to share his own thoughts today as one of our own ministers, the Reverend Peter Connolly.
Good morning, and best wishes for an enjoyable fall season. We can think of the fall as a transitional season between the heat of summer, oh, it was too hot in July, and the cold of winter, which I don't even want to think about. Or we can think of the fall as a season in and of itself, a season of cool mornings, temperate days, some sun, some rain, perfect weather for hiking, and evening fires by the fire pit or fireplace. A time to move from shorts and t-shirts to long pants, long sleeve shirts, light jackets. A time to enjoy being outdoors. The pleasures of the season are restricted this year, of course. The groups that we gather in will be smaller. Most of us will not socialize beyond with the members of our immediate family. We will continue to keep in contact more with phone calls and Zoom meetings than we will in person. So we are likely to feel confined, restricted. Our spirits may droop. They may even drop into troughs of depression, from which it will be hard to remove ourselves. We are all well aware by now of the physical dangers of COVID-19 and the psychological dangers associated with it. The worry that we may become exposed, that never completely vanishes. The worry that our loved ones may contract the disease. Reality hits when relatives, friends, neighbors, associates, and acquaintances get the disease. Though I never met her, I mourn the loss of Dr. Rebecca Shadowin, who fought a valiant battle against COVID-19 for 4 months before succumbing. She was much loved and admired in this community. May her memory be a blessing to us. Personally, the past 6 months have been challenging. I should amend that. The first 2 months of imposed restrictions, calling it a lockdown would be too much, were actually more pleasurable than painful. I missed my weekly jail visits with inmates at the Warren County Jail and our twice monthly worship service at the jail, and I missed seeing the church members who helped with those services. And I missed my weekly visits with the second grader whom I mentor at a local elementary school. But the freedom of an open schedule felt liberating. During month 3, I began to get restive, still enjoying all the free time, but longing for more structure in my days. Months 4 through 6 have been harder. Too much free time on my hands, too much physical pain, as my hips continue to deteriorate and my lower back pain continues. I'm more aware of my age. I still have projects that keep me busy, and more than that, meaningfully occupied. But I find myself more and more resentful of the poorly handled federal response to this national emergency that has made all these attendant restrictions necessary, that has contributed to such anguish, that has cost so many lives. And I find myself infuriated by the lies and the manipulation animating the politics surrounding the kind of crisis that should be bringing us all together as Americans. And more than that, it should be bringing all the nations of the world together. And I feel all but powerless in the face of this cynical manipulation of the political climate in order to benefit the few, whom I have trouble not labeling sociopaths under these circumstances. It's getting harder and harder to watch the nightly news. The devastating damage of hundreds of wildfires to human lives and the natural world in California and the West troubles me deeply. Do you realize that 3.5 million acres have burned in California? 1 million acres in Oregon. 807,000 acres in Washington state. A total of 7 million acres burned in the United States in just this wildfire season. That's an area larger than the entire state of Massachusetts. I mourn for the loss of wildlife, mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, insects. I mourn for the loss of trees, shrubs, whole forests, homes, neighborhoods, towns, communities. I grieve to see photographs of skies 3,000 miles away obscured by the smoke. Smoke so thick that it traveled the whole expanse of the Atlantic Ocean to cloud the skies of Europe. And I know that the causes of these wildfires include drought and high winds, and that excessive heat has fueled these fires, making them so much worse than the fires of times past. And I know that the droughts and high winds and excessive heat are the product are the products of climate change, global warming. And I know that we human beings and the civilizations that we have created have contributed greatly, determinatively, to this changing climate. And I know that we have been slow to address this existential threat. And among our national leaders are those who deny that climate change even exists. And that infuriates me. And that fury is something I would like to talk about today. The headlines of the evening news have shifted from forest fires and wildfires lately to hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico. This has been a record-setting hurricane season, as you probably know. Though there are 21 alphabetized options for naming the tropical storms that turn into hurricanes, the World Meteorological Association has already run out of names. We've seen tropical storms from Arthur to Wilfred develop into hurricanes this year, and still we didn't have enough names. As I wrote this on Tuesday afternoon, Tropical Storm Beta was still disrupting lives in Louisiana and Texas. Yes, we've turned to the Greek alphabet for names. We've had so many tropical storms this year. Hurricane season starts on June 1st and ends on November 30th. This year, though, Hurricanes Arthur and Bertha formed in mid-May. This is the 6th year in a row that we've experienced hurricanes before the official start of hurricane season, and that's never happened before. This is only the second hurricane season ever to produce so many storms that the alphabet has run out of names. This is also the first season to see 7 named storms reach the continental United States before the month of September. Hurricanes and tropical storms are also reaching farther than ever before. The subtropical storm Alpha made landfall in Portugal. That's never happened before. Hurricane Teddy reached as far as Atlantic Canada. This kind of thing just does not happen in what we think of as normal times. It's an unavoidable conclusion that human-caused climate change has affected weather patterns so markedly, exacerbating extremes in wind speeds and temperature shifts. Perhaps we're becoming so used to this we don't even get angry anymore. It's just the weather. We can't do anything about it. If so, we're ignoring the alarm bells that are sounding so loudly. In the week just past, deaths from the coronavirus in the United States surpassed 200,000. 200,000. Roughly the population of Akron, Ohio, or Richmond, Virginia, or Montgomery, Alabama. No other country is even close. With 4% of the world's population, we have 25% of the world's cases and 21% of deaths from COVID-19. And our president is giving himself an A+ for his handling of the pandemic. No one could have handled it better, he says. The funeral for Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg was held a few days ago. Her death was announced 9 days ago. Within 24 hours, the Senate Majority Leader announced plans to replace her on the Supreme Court. There was not an official grieving period for the loss. The same man who in 2016 insisted that an election was too close to vote to replace newly retired Justice Kennedy when that election was still many months in the future. The hypocrisy is too much. It makes my blood boil. Anger turns to fury. What do I do with this emotion? I certainly have no plans to engage in violent acts, but I've wondered if it's a fact that heads can explode. My own, I mean. Maybe it's not the same for you. Maybe I have the fabled Irish temperament that means my emotions get triggered more quickly than yours. But judging from the comments I've seen every day for the last several years, as I've scrolled through my Facebook page, I know that I'm not alone in feeling outraged by the way that politics has disrupted rather than facilitated public discourse, by the way that political motivation has subverted the solid guidance provided by science. I'm not a person with a lot of personal enemies. I'm not in the habit of hating a lot of people. And when I do, I recognize that harmful emotion, and I tend to examine it and do my best to put it in its place. I know from experience that as time goes by, emotions settle, and the violence of negative emotions dissipates somehow. But now I've struggled with the problem of hate, not towards those I know personally, but towards some people in public life. Almost all of them politicians, but also those who call themselves journalists, who are in fact propagandists and hate mongers. Today I would like to talk to you about this problem of hate. Please note that I'm talking about the problem of hate, not hate as a solution to anything. But yes, hate as a reality in the world, in our lives, and for most of us, I expect in our hearts. It's not a pleasant topic, and it's not a pleasant feeling, but it's real enough to present an obstacle to our peace of mind, and real enough to decrease the quality of life of those around us. A kind of poison, if you will, the poison of hate. The question I'd like to explore is, how do we honestly admit that disturbing, hateful feelings sometimes overwhelm us, while at the same time finding a way to deal with them in a way that is healthy and not destructive? But are hateful feelings a problem for you? Maybe the unwanted feeling that overwhelms you sometimes is one of fear or dread. These feelings, of course, are not mutually exclusive. Fear, dread, hate. What do we do with these feelings when we are convinced that they are being provoked by something real, something dangerous, and something that needs to be dealt with? As I contemplated these questions and these feelings over the past weeks, my mind turned to a book that I read a few years ago that left an impact like few books have. Maybe you know it. It's called The Sunflower. Its subtitle is On the Possibilities and Limits of Forgiveness. It's written by Simone Wiesenthal, a survivor of the Holocaust, better called Shoah, and famous as a Nazi hunter after World War II. Simone Wiesenthal was a prisoner in no fewer than 5 concentration camps over the course of 3 years, from late 1941 to late 1944. The events described in The Sunflower occurred in the Lemberg concentration camp, and the story he relates is a horrifying one. In 1943, which you might say was the height of World War II and the height of the Shoah experience, a group of prisoners, or forced laborers, if you will, are sent to a converted army hospital to clear away medical waste. By pure chance, it would seem, Simone Wiesenthal, one of the laborers, is summoned by a nurse to enter the hospital. And there he is led to the bedside of a man who is dying, a Nazi soldier, a member of the paramilitary organization called the SS. The face of the German soldier, Karl Seidel, is so covered with bandages that his eyes are not visible. In any case, he has been blinded as a result of an explosion. He is asked to speak to a Jew, but neither the nurse nor Simon Wiesenthal know why. Herr Seidel tells the story of his youth, his love of his mother, his conflicts with his father's socialist politics, his fervent support of the Nazi cause, his creeping realization that he has been manipulated by the officers in charge, and finally, the horror of his participation in a war crime so heinous that it feels profane to talk about it here. 300 Jews, many of them children, are herded into a house. The soldier says he can hardly believe the house can contain so many people. The soldiers throw hand grenades through the windows, killing hundreds of people inside. Those who do not die immediately attempt to escape by jumping out of the windows. The soldiers are ordered to shoot them while they're in the air. The soldier recounting the events is especially haunted by the expression in the eyes of a young child, a child whom he murdered. All 300 are murdered, either by the exploding hand grenades or by being gunned down by the German soldiers. After the story has been told and the context of the soldier's life revealed, Herr Seidel asks for forgiveness from Simon Wiesenthal, a Jew, meant to represent all Jews. Wiesenthal is clearly moved by the soldier's regret. He's also filled with revulsion for the crime, and he feels manipulated. He doesn't believe just because he's Jewish, he has the capacity to forgive in the name of all those who no longer survive, who cannot judge for themselves whether or not to offer forgiveness. He withdraws his hand from the hand of the soldier, the hand that had been so desperately grasping his. He walks out of the room in silence and returns to the barracks that he calls home. The first 100 pages of the book tell this story. Wiesenthal recounts the soldier's story in his own reactions, emotional and intellectual, to what he's hearing. He leaves us with the question, what would you have done? And the remaining 170 pages of the book are devoted to the responses of 53 notable persons, theologians, philosophers, social activists, writers, doing their best to struggle with the question. The purposeful murder of 300 innocent individuals may not seem comparable to the death of who knows how many tens of thousands due to the inaction of federal authorities in the COVID-19 outbreak. There may seem to be a wider difference between such willful murder and the willful ignorance that has led to possibly irrevocable climate change. So the comparison may seem far-fetched. But is it? Because we cannot draw the line so firmly and directly, does that mean that the correlation does not exist? Do I feel so outraged because I can see and feel the connection here while others cannot? Are there irrational impulses within me that cause me to overreact? Are there similar impulses in you? The parallels I draw here are not exact. No one has asked for forgiveness, for example. And if they had, who am I to forgive? I can only imagine the hate that must have existed in the bosoms of those victimized by Nazi war crimes. The first of the bunkmates to whom Wiesenthal confides when he hears the story of the SS soldier's death says, "One less! And so you saw a murderer dying. I would like to do that 10 times a day. I couldn't have enough of such hospital visits. I have seen comments like this directed towards those in power who have abused their power over the past few years, who have been derelict in their duties. Are such comments helpful, even if they are based on emotions that are truly felt? What is the line between the true expression of genuinely felt emotion, righteous hatred, and responsible action in the world? My own response may surprise you. Feeling such disgust and indignation, and in time, rage, I decided to explore just how far these feelings had grown, how wide a field they encompassed. I decided to make a list of all the people that I hate. Simple enough, right? A half dozen, 8, 10? Oh no, many more than that. Politicians, people in power, people whose actions and inaction cost hundreds of thousands of lives, people whose politics put policies in place that destroy the world's ecology and the chance for happiness and a healthy life for who knows how many generations yet to come. The next night, I thought of another half dozen names. Their faces kept appearing on TV. I added them to the list. The next night, another 3 or 4. None the next night or the following night. I put away the list, and gradually I forgot about it. What was the outcome of this experiment? It seems that by the act of naming and placing the names somewhere outside of myself, the supercharged feelings associated with them have cooled. It's not exactly that the feelings have been exorcised, but they're much milder than before. They don't occupy the same amount of space in my head or in my heart. They don't cause me so much turmoil. I'm free to take actions that come from a more settled place. And this led me to remember the virtue of a meditative practice. Though I've had time enough to meditate, I haven't had the inclination. I've somehow associated it more with work than rest. But I've added a 10-minute meditation to my morning. And I realized the rest that it brings. 10 minutes of open-eyed meditation, sitting on the back deck, just looking at the trees, the skies, the movement of wind through the trees, the flight of the few birds moving across the sky. 10 minutes where breathing is the central activity, brings refreshment. Recently, I've learned that scientific observation has revealed that regular meditation creates new neural pathways, new neural circuits in the brain, which allow for a less agitated feeling of being in the world. Also recently, a friend has suggested that we read a book together with a third friend, a book on critical thinking. Critical thinking rather than emotionally driven thinking. And there are literally dozens of such books available. I think we'll be reading a book that John Downing suggested a few years ago, a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. I don't know if creating a hate list would be a productive activity for you, but because it was therapeutic for me, I offer it to you as a way to more productively deal with the negative emotions that may be dominating your life. I'm almost certain that a morning meditation practice will be helpful to you. And reading a book on critical thinking, especially in a group with others, may be a third thing that can help you as we struggle together through this most difficult and challenging of times. Finally, I offer you just one more thing. In a recent interview, the writer, feminist, and activist Gloria Steinem was asked how she remains hopeful in such a challenging time. She calls herself a hopeaholic. She said that for her, hope is another word for having a plan. Having a plan to move forward is putting hope in action. Hope doesn't create the plan. Hope is created by having a plan. Without a plan, she says, you're defeated from the start. For her, such plans means working with others. In our activism, in placing ourselves in front of the post office to protest the politicizing of the mail, or at Circus Park to assert together that Black lives matter, we create a hopeful spirit which feeds a hopeful future. There are things that we can do together. There are things that we can do alone that modulate the effect of destructive emotions and feed the growth of healthy action. May we be wise enough to invest the time we need to create peace in our hearts and in the world we inhabit. Shalom. Shana Tova.
Thank you, Reverend Connolly, for sharing your thoughts with us today on this important topic. As part of our responsible search for truth and meaning, we encourage thoughtful discourse, and so you are invited to stay in this Zoom meeting or join us there after this service ends, and join in one of the sermon discussion rooms to talk about forgiveness. We share in other ways too. If you have a joy, a sorrow, or a gratitude to share, please type it into the chat box. And you can also always email us at caring@uubgky.org during the week to share with us in other ways and times. This place and the work we do is supported by the voluntary generosity of all who contribute. The offering is a sacrament of the Free Church. We will now accept an offering which will be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared hopes and values. While we listen to the offertory music, we invite you to go to the website shown on the screen and donate that way, online, or write a check and mail it to our church office. You're also encouraged again to type in your joys and concerns and sorrows into the chat box to share with others who are with us today. final hymn is Shabbat Shalom. Please join in singing. The words are Shabbat Shalom, which means may the peace of the Lord be with you on this Sabbath day.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom.
May the light around us guide our footsteps and hold us fast to the best and most righteous that we seek. May the darkness around us nurture our dreams and give us rest, so that we may give ourselves to the work of the world. Let us seek to remember the wholeness of our lives, the weaving of light and shadow in this great and astonishing dance in which we move.
As our gathering ends today, we will extinguish the flame in our chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry with us wherever we go. Go in peace, go in forgiveness, go in love.